I'm so delighted to be with all of you here today. It's just breathtaking to see the kind of energy that I've seen during the inauguration and the intercultural performance. I would like to address to each one of you as my friend in our common cause of transforming education for human and planetary flourishing. So please accept my sincerest gratitude for joining us here today at the ICT 2022. Your presence and your participation means so much to us. My name is Aaryan Salman, and to the delight and surprise of many people, I'm a first generation learner and a first generation education leader who's working on global citizenship education. And for me to be here today with all of you, one of the main reason is the wondrous work of people like you, educators like you, people in my life, my family, my educators, my friends, and my mentors. Now, without all of these people, I do not think I would have been here today. So that is the kind of initial experience that I've had, the kind of human relationships that we've formed. So when you look at global citizenship or SEL, or even your pedagogies and technologies that you use, it's all about people. It's all about connections. It's all about relationships that we have. At the end of the day, what every child needs is what I received early on. And that is a transformative and humane experience and an education that spans beyond the constraints and confines of textbooks. When we come to a conference like the International Conference on Transformative Education, the key term here is transformative education. When you look at the whole idea of education, education has to be transformative, period. Education is transformative, period. So the idea of us emphasizing on the word transformative education is also because of the challenges that the system faces. And the only way for us to move ahead is when we bring all stakeholders together and work together to address the challenges. I do not believe that the system is broken. I just feel that we need to tighten the gaps that are there. So, with all of you here, I'm all the more confident that we as individuals, we as organizations, we as people and communities, we can come together and shape the kind of education that could transform our world into a much better and brighter place. Now, one of the things I remember when I was in school, I was in grade 5, and I asked one of my teachers, why do we need to study math? And my teacher said, because it's in the curriculum. So I had very limited interest in mathematics. So that was one of the things. I went to college, and when I was in college, I did not ask my teacher because I was just afraid of asking why trigonometry. So I ended up attending this one amazing lecture. So my teacher taught me how trigonometry would solve problems that we face as people in our day-to-day lives. And that opened my eyes. And I think that is when I scored the highest in math. I was able to relate to the subject. So when you look at transformative education, one of the most central elements of transformative education is purpose. Now, there are other elements like, say, pedagogy, content, technology, and strategy. So all of these things put together, they shape the kind of education that is common sense education that every child deserves, and I'm sure all of us can deliver, and many of us are delivering that, and that's so commendable. During the pandemic, one of the most inspiring things that I could see was teachers from every background, whether they are from developed countries or from developing countries or underdeveloped countries. So every space, we saw how teachers transformed their environments, how they actually adapted and tried to serve the best needs of the child. So the pandemic has shown us that with the kind of resolve that all our teachers had, we'll be able to transform the world. Now, I have one concern: semantics, language. It's not necessary for us to have our teachers as COVID warriors or warriors in general, because the idea of being at war is, first of all, the language is violent. Second of all, when you look at the idea of teachers as warriors, we are taking away the space for teachers to have the resources. Because when you're at a war zone, irrespective of the resources, you need to fight. All right. So the idea that we need to provide. So I urge all governments, all systems, all institutions to look into the urgency of addressing capacity building of teachers. And I'm sure like the ones who are here already, they recognize the importance of capacity building. Now, talking about transformative education and how teachers can solve it, one of the most important things for schools to understand is Sustainable Development Goal 4. There are 10 targets, and we all know them. So, two key targets that we work on is SDG 4.7, that is education for global citizenship and sustainable development. And that is also one of the thematic areas of this conference: transformative education for human and planetary flourishing. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much we earn, it doesn't matter what kind of cars we have, what kind of life we have, if we are not able to connect with nature, with ourselves, our communities, and if you're not compassionate, if you're not kind, if you're not mindful of our actions and our words. So I hope that with this conference, moving forward, we would advance this noble goal of the United Nations. That's goal number 4, which is the linchpin for all other goals. At the heart of SDG 4 is 4.7, because it gives purpose and meaning to quality education. It gives us a direction in which we can look and shape the kind of education, shape the many futures of education that our children deserve and our future needs. Now, looking at 4C, supply of quality educators, one of the things that we all need to work on is figure out how can we help each other in developing spaces and resources and avenues where we can exchange thoughts and ideas. Now, it was that idea during the COVID-19 pandemic that we started working on one core mandate, that is to build community. So we've invited some educators, and we'll also be doing personal onboarding with few, because we want to create an amazing community. So I'm looking forward to you joining the community post the conference and taking things forward, the discourse and actions forward. Recently, one of the things that we've also been working on, which I hope that we all can work on, is take global citizenship to every country, every school, every classroom, every child. And that's possible now with technology. So recently we partnered with the UNESCO, and one of the things that we're trying to do is take it to every possible classroom. We do understand that digital poverty and digital divide is a challenge. We need to figure out how will we address that. Generally, when I ask people, what is your idea of technology? Can you just draw? And I give them some time to draw. Usually you see a computer or a laptop or a phone or an iPad. Now, all of these are technologies. I acknowledge, I don't deny that. But in places where we have deficit of this, technology could also be a blackboard. It could be a notebook. It could just be a pen and paper. So the idea of looking at technology broadly is essential for us to shape the kind of education that we can in an inclusive manner. So not just to look at technology with just digital tools. So we need to move beyond in case we want to include in an immediate scenario. In long term, yes, we can provide for tools wherever possible. Now, having said that, I want to bring back our attention to the idea of how the themes of this conference are interwoven. When you talk about transformative education, all we are talking about is SDG 4 in its truest sense. So when you look at global citizenship education, it talks about individual and collective flourishing. You talk about SEL, it does the same, individual and collective flourishing. You talk about pedagogies and technologies, we're looking at how we can bring out the best in our teachers as well as our students. Now, the idea of this conference is not just to bring nuanced ideas, but also to give words to things that it's harder for us to describe in many scenarios. So the ability for us to figure out what we're doing, because I saw my teachers do SEL without them knowing that it was SEL. So when I reached out to them and said, are you aware of SEL? They're like, okay, what is it? I want to understand, right? Similarly, when you look at global citizenship, so when we introduced global citizenship to schools in India, one of the things that a lot of folks asked us was, what exactly would you teach in global citizenship, right? And we were able to tell them, like, look, there's so many things that you've already been doing. The idea of this conference is also to give you that space to discover the things that you've already been doing and to amplify that effort, and to also gain from the insights, experience, expertise, and leadership of leaders who have come here, who have voluntarily come here to share their knowledge, time, and ideas with all of us. So I'm eternally grateful to each one of you for being here. This conference is huge for us. One is the diversity that it brings in. We have about 45 to 50 specialists from 16 countries who are taking up sessions across the 3 days. The second thing why it's also interesting is because we have tried to experiment with different formats to engage you. I think perhaps it's one of the very few conferences where you'll see a competitive debate on a topic like global citizenship. We want to build on to this. And while we initiate this conference, I want to tell you that this cannot happen with us. It's not a one-way street. This is only possible, it will only be successful if we have the support of a community like you. So my sincerest appreciation for each one of you for having taken the initiative, time to come here and be with us. If you are not there, perhaps we would not even be doing this conference. And again, as somebody who could not think of coming to a conference like this. So it's all thanks to people like you who have shaped me into being a person. And I want every child to be inspired by people like you. I hope that these 3 days that we have, we are able to leverage the very best. We are trying to come up with a white paper at the end of the conference to make sure that whatever we have learned throughout these 3 days, we can condense it and share it with governments, we can share it with international civil society organizations, institutions, and all of you. So I'm looking forward to your help, your support, and your action in these 3 days and beyond. So thank you so much, each and every one of you, and I'm delighted to be a part of this endeavor. And I believe that this is not my conference, this is your conference. And I'm just so happy to be a part of it, to look into ways where I can learn from each one of you. Hopefully, I look forward to our informal networking sessions, and I hope you enjoy the formal ones and the informal ones. Thank you.